We don't have to wait any longer. Okay, maybe a week, but it's finally here, Clemson football season, and that's why I'm going to give you my record prediction. Did you hear I said that? Sound like I had a stroke or something. Record prediction, the 2024 preview of the Clemson football season. But first, welcome to the channel. I'm Brian. I'm glad you're here. I hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already. Remember, it's the easiest way to support the channel because it's free, so I hope you'll do that. Let's dive right in. Normally on previews, you have to wait till the very end of the video before I give you the record prediction, the different scenarios, best case, worst case, what I think is actually going to happen. Tonight, I'm going to do something totally different. I'm going to give you my record predictions at the very beginning. I'm going to talk about, right after that, I'm going to talk about some of the key hires that we've had, maybe some new personnel, returning players, and I'm going to talk about some things that has to change for us to see good success this year, right? Good success. Is there anything of bad success? I guess if you do it wrong, but you know what I mean. So after that, I'll break down game by game, just kind of go over them and tell you who I think we're definitely going to beat and some of the toss-ups and go from there. So without further ado, here are my record predictions. First, I'll start off with the best case scenario for the 2024 Clemson football season. For the regular season, 11-1. Worst case scenario, 7-5. What I actually think will happen this coming season, regular season, 9-3. I'll explain all of this in just a moment. Stick with me. In the offseason, Clemson, okay, it wasn't really the offseason. It was the end of the regular season. They parted ways with Thomas Austin, former Clemson player, 2 years out of Georgia State, or as an offensive coach, offensive line coach, or whatever he was doing down there. And they brought him back to Clemson. It was just a little too much too soon. No shot at Austin. I don't blame him for coming back to Clemson, but Dabo ended up letting him go. And what did he do? He turned around and he hired one of the best, not only offensive line coaches in college football, he hired, in my opinion, one of the best position coaches in all of college football. Matt Luke joined the Clemson Tigers before the Gator Bowl against Kentucky. And since then, he's definitely had his work cut out for him. But that's why you hire a specialist, and that's why teams like Clemson, who has brand awareness, who does have clout in this current environment, can go out and get the best of the best if they want to. And they did. They got Matt Luke. He came in. Everybody's excited about him. Also, remember they brought back Chris Rumpf. He did a stint with Clemson there for a while, and then he went on to the NFL, and now he is back, replacing Hall. So we're really excited about this. We're really excited about Garrett Riley getting his second full season as offensive coordinator. Now, last year, we have to learn from it, but I'm going to try not to talk about last year too much. Again, learn from it, move on. But the offensive room is definitely, hopefully, getting a little better on the coaching side, definitely with personnel, having Luke and Garrett Riley join the team. And hopefully that will make the other areas of the team look better, especially because the offensive line will please get better. On the defensive side of the ball, it's almost like a totally different team, a totally different hiring process and requirements. I've said this a lot. The defensive coaches for Clemson, most of them have tenure. Most of them have multiple stops. Wes Goodwin, you could say, well, he had never been a defensive coordinator before, but the guy was praised by some of the most brilliant minds in pro and college football. The guy was thrown the keys to the car, and he is far from wrecked the car. In fact, he's done an incredible job. And so the unit as a whole looks incredible. Let's talk about some of the players coming back. I'm not going to go through all of them. Most notably, we do have a second-year starter in Cade Klubnik. He's received a lot of flack for some things I believe is totally not his fault. Unfortunately, he is the starting quarterback for Clemson, and he's going to catch the blame. That's, if you're going to catch the praise for things sometimes that you really didn't do, you're also going to catch some of the flack for the things that, well, you didn't do as well. We also have Phil Maffa. I'm going to make a statement that's going to rub some people wrong. I appreciate Will Shipley. Glad he came to Clemson. He's very talented. Phil Maffa has been playing second fiddle, not only to him, but even when Phil came to Clemson, he was having to play second, third, and fourth fiddle to other people. Phil Moffitt is a premier running back, and he should have been starting way longer than just this season. And we saw that in the Notre Dame game, but we've seen that that fact, in my opinion, well before then, for the entirety of his career at Clemson. We know about Antonio Williams. He had a great freshman campaign last year. He was riddled with injury. Tyler Brown emerged. But we also saw ourselves lose Bo Collins, who just had a really off season last year. He had a great career at Clemson. He goes to Notre Dame. Stellato and Randall, they've had a lot of health problems. They are back. Hopefully they can stay healthy. Even right now, Stellato is still beat up. It's really, really sad because I think the guy possibly has the best hands on the team. We go to our tight end room, Brennan Stoll, Pat Henry, Sapp, and then that Bettencourt. I probably butchered his last name, but probably the most talented room, a talented unit on the entire team, but they get overlooked so much. As I said, probably overlooked someone, but I'm not going to overlook the two freshmen everyone is looking forward to seeing play on the offensive side of the ball. Bryant Wesco, TJ Moore. A lot of pressure, a lot of high hopes is being placed, or it's being placed on these guys, and rightfully so. But let's kind of chill out on our expectations. I know I probably missed some players on the offensive side of the football. The offensive line has been riddled with injury. Walker Parks is back, and hopefully he can stay healthy. Marcus Tate, Blake Miller, Tristan Lee, a guy who was he was actually tied with Barrett Carter as the top rated player in that unbelievable 2021 recruiting class. It was top 5 according to 24/7 Sports. That was also the same recruiting class that we saw Will Shipley, Nate Wiggins, Jeremiah Trotter, Phil Maffa. I could keep going. Those guys were signed in that unbelievable class as well. Tristan Lee, a lot of eyes are on him to see if he can actually show that 5-star before he got to Clemson rating that everybody and their brother wanted him to come play for them. Let's talk about the defense. The defense, we saw great names like Xavier Thomas, guy that he was a freshman when Trevor Lawrence was a freshman. A great story of how he persevered. XT will always be revered in the Clemson community, especially by myself. Rook is gone. Jeremiah Trotter's gone. Tyler Davis is gone. We saw Makuba transfer to Texas, and I'm probably overlooking someone else. But overall, Clemson is just fine on the defense. Now, yes, they only have like 5 returning starters, while the offense has 8 or 9 returning starters. But no one, including myself, is too worried about the defense. Why? Well, when you got Peter Woods, you got Cape Hart, you have TJ Parker, Barrett Carter, guys like that. Khalil Barnes, who was probably the best story, maybe on the team last year, came out and just blew us away. Avion Terrell living up to the family name. Jaden Lucas and Shelton Lewis, both of these guys are banged up. I don't know if they're going to be playing. I don't know where they're at right now in their recovery before the season opener. But you do have guys like RJ Mickens who return. He's definitely like a quarterback there in the secondary. And so you have players like that who are coming back, whether they were a starter or whether they saw a lot of playing time. It gives you confidence in the defense that between the coaching experience, the scheming, and the talent, that compared to our schedule, I believe we stand a great chance of staying in a lot of games, while especially at the beginning of the season, because our season is top heavy, playing the 3 toughest teams we'll play all season within the first 5 games. This will be the crew that, while the offense is trying to figure out what's going on, hopefully they've done some of this in the offseason in some of these preseason practices, but if they are still trying to figure out some things, maybe not clicking on all cylinders, I believe the defense will be completely responsible for us staying in games that otherwise we may not stay in. So let's talk about some of the keys to the season. Who has the most pressure on them? I know you want to say Cade Klubnik. I kind of want to say Cade Klubnik, but when I stopped and I thought about it, it clicked with me. It's the offensive line. I mean, yeah, the quarterback's got to play well, But the quarterback cannot play well if he snaps the ball and all of a sudden he's screaming like a person with their hand in hot water, boiling water, running for their life. The wide receivers cannot complete their routes if the play has broken down a second and a half or even a second since the ball has been snapped. The point here, get to the point, is the offensive line has to be much better. They don't have to be the best offensive line in America, but they have to be better. I know that whole injury thing. I know the whole losing players here and there and blah, blah, blah. They have to be better. Now, here's the good news. I believe they will be improved. Again, temper your expectations. Matt Luke is a brilliant mind, but he's not a miracle worker. He's not parting the Red Sea here, folks. He's having to retrain these guys. He is having to teach them the proper techniques. He's having to make them react in just in this level of play. You don't stop and think about what you're going to do, right? If you do, you end up in the injury tent. You end up over at Oconee Memorial, injured, right? No, what you do in this type of football, you have to have your reaction time. It has to be down. You have to, when you react, it has to be boom, right on the spot, and it's tough. But that's why these guys are on scholarship to play at Clemson University. They're not playing up at some itty-bitty school, doo-doo state, or, the Red Hat Ladies of Idaho. They're playing at Clemson University, folks. So that's kind of expected of them. But they do have a real leader, and that is Matt Luke. So we have to see consistent improvement across the offensive line. That trickles down to Cade Klubnik. Cade Klubnik, a guy who has taken a lot of flack. A lot of people said he's overrated, folks. I've said it 100 times. Here goes 101. You cannot fake it or get lucky in 6A Texas football. I'm sorry. You're wrong. I will turn red face, have a stroke over that one. I'm not saying that the guy cannot be, how can I say this? I'm not saying that the guy may have not been developed well once he got to Clemson. And I mean, think about I'm trying to focus on the future here, but I mean, we have to actually look at the past in a realistic way. But what I'm trying to say is Cade Klubnik is a talented football player, and he's been dealt a terrible hand of cards. An offensive line that's suspect, guys that can't stay healthy around him, whether it's on the O-line, whether it's wide receivers. It's really, really sad, and he's picked up some bad habits. This year, he cannot stare down wide receivers. If the offensive line is giving him just an extra second, literally one Mississippi more, he cannot stare down guys. Not at this level of football. Maybe in high school he could get away with it, but not at this level of football. And he knows it. He's a smart guy. And he has some talented people around him who's hopefully guiding him at this point. But he cannot stare down players, and he cannot try to throw into double coverage and triple coverage. We've seen him throw into triple coverage. So that would be the next point of emphasis. So offensive line, quarterback, next wide receivers. Okay, where everybody's hoping that Wesco and TJ Moore is going to bring back wide receiver U. That's fine. I hope so. The point is, again, they are true freshmen. We do have players who are on Clemson's roster right now. Antonio Williams, this will be season number 3 for him. I know last year he was injured most of the season, but still, he's been around the program. He's been in the playbook. He's been around these offensive coaches. He's been running routes and working on his timing with Cade. Folks, we got to see guys like Antonio Williams step up. Hopefully they can stay healthy. I'll get to that in a second. Tyler Brown, can he come out and do what he did just last year? He doesn't even have to do any more. Can he do what he did last year? That is a great question that I would like to hopefully receive in a resounding yes. Let's talk about the tight end room. I think the tight end room is one of the most unutilized units in all of college football. When you get to the pros, the NFL uses the tight ends like you wouldn't believe. And I think that at Clemson, that's somewhere we're missing out. People want to talk about Brennan still. Oh, he's not this or he's not that. He's 6'6", he's 230, and he can catch. Maybe he's not down there throwing these hammer blocks on the corner, but the guy can catch. Get the ball to the big target. You don't have to go to Harvard and have a 160 IQ to get the ball to the big target. Just get it to him. Throw it in his general direction. You have Sapp, you have Pat Henry, you have these guys who can actually come in, catch the football, and of course, I said earlier, Bettenker, guy came in, incredible tight end. So on the offensive side of the football, that's what we need. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. We do have youth there, but this youth is extremely talented. Guys like Khalil Barnes, I believe he's going to come out and do very well. Avion Terrell, I think he's going to do very, very well. We will have an asterisk beside Lucas and or Shelton Lewis. We have to figure out what is going on there. Now, I believe in Tavoy Fagan, the true freshman. We saw him put on a clinic in the 2024 spring game. He was kind of like this year's Khalil Barnes of the 2023 spring game. He came out, had an interception. He could have had 3, but he was in the right place at the right time, made a great defensive play. I believe in this guy. I really don't know about Corian Gibson, whether he will actually step into it to more of a dominant role. But Tavoy Fagan, hey, throw him out there, let him do what he can do. But we are going to see some mistakes by these young players. We're going to see it. Why? Because they're young. That's why. So especially the true freshmen, you're going to see even some of these guys like Terrell and Khalil Barnes, you will see mistakes out of them. Now, Peter Woods, TJ Parker, these guys are unbelievable. The line is going to be the line. One good thing about playing Clemson's defense, or bad if you're the opposing team, is that Clemson's front seven is pretty doggone good. I mean, their front seven is a strength. So if you're a run-heavy football team, even if you have a really good offensive line, Clemson is going to give you fits up front, even though they have a lot of youth there. I mean, Peter Woods, as a true freshman, just a few months removed out of high school, in his spring game, he just looked like an upperclassman. And this was his first spring game. I know it's a glorified practice, and then he went on and performed. And barring injury, and I'm going to get to that again in just a second, he and TJ Parker are going to wreak havoc on the opposing team. I mean, they really are. And think about this too. Peter Woods, they have him as defensive end at 6'2", 315. The guy is a beast. We brought in other fantastic players. Not going to get into that. Of course, Sammy Brown, he doesn't have to come in and be Mr. Everything, because Barrett Carter chose to come back and play. Probably had to do with his draft stock was not as high as he probably thought it was going to be. But Barrett Carter, it's a big deal that we have him anchoring the middle linebacker position. He's going to lead these guys. He's going to lead Woodies. He's going to guide Sammy Brown. He's going to guide the players around him, and I'm really, really looking forward to him. Guys like Jamal Anderson, who came in, had a great pick six in the spring campaign. Very, very talented players. And so that's what I'm looking at. Once again, I might have missed a player here or two, but we have really good reasons to be excited for Clemson's defense. Let's talk about special teams. As of today, Nolan Hauser seems to be a little out front of Robert Gunn, but what kind of bothers me is that we still don't have like a definitive kicker, a guy who's come out there and made his presence known. To me, the vibe that I'm getting from the post-practice interviews and some of the notes that I've been reading, or articles I've been reading with the comments about the kicking game, it's not like these are two beasts that are kicking. It sounds like these are two guys that they're not terrible, but they're not dominant, and one's just kind of doing a little better than the other. Maybe I'm wrong. Hope I'm wrong. But if you've probably read some of the articles from Legacy Clemson Media, some of the articles online, listen to some of the post-practice, post-scrimmage interviews, you're hearing the same thing. So I'm hoping we can get the kicking game together, or have Jonathan Watts on speed dial and see if we can get another year of eligibility out of him. Of course, that is just a joke. What's the other key to this season? Injuries. I know that this is like a pillar of a team being successful, right? But the problem is on both sides of the ball, but especially on the offensive side of the ball, we have been plagued with injuries more than I've ever seen during the Dabo Swinney era. It and over the past few years, it has just been a common thing. The offensive line, we saw them ravaged with injury. Talked about Randall and Stellato, they can't get healthy. We saw Bo Collins. I know he's no longer with us, but it's a good example. Struggle with injury. Makuba, he transferred out, injury. We're seeing now Shelton Lewis and Jaden Lucas on the defensive side of the ball struggle with injury. The question is, what is going on? Do we have a nutrition issue? Do we have, what is it? What is it? What is going on that we're having so many injuries and now it's plaguing us? You can talk about the offensive line and say, well, hey, those guys are, you get a bunch of big bodies, strong guys like that, they're going to get injured. Sure, it's going to happen, but it's happening more to Clemson now. I mean, way more than ever, and that is creating a lot of problems for Clemson. It is creating a lot of problems for them. So we're going to have to figure out what is causing so many injuries, and it's going to have to be addressed because other teams, they go through injuries, but not as consistently as Clemson has been going through injury uh, um, over the past few years, 3 years. So it's really, really sad. Next, turnovers. Turnovers. I don't know what's happened to the Tigers. It really bothered me that week before last. Maybe it was even last week. I was reading through some of the post scrimmage notes. Dabo Swinney said, hey, I'm proud of our team, and he's going through, he's praising players and everything. And then he gets to this part, he goes, yeah, we fumbled the ball twice. One was recovered by the offense, the other wasn't. And then we turned over the ball, and, we threw an interception. Folks, I don't know all who was involved there. This is, at that time, that was a little over 2 weeks away from the opening game against the number one team in the country, whether you like them or not. I'm not a Georgia fan whatsoever. But you're a touchdown underdog to these guys, and a little over 2 weeks outside of you playing them, you're still fumbling the ball. The reason that should concern us is because it's one of the main reasons that last season ended up the way that it was. Turnovers. The Duke game, turnovers, 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 turnovers. Throughout this season, turnovers, missed blocks by a back, and the linebacker comes through totally untouched and knocks the paw off of Cade's helmet, and the ball squirts backwards. That can't happen this year. If you're going to play championship football, you're going to play at this level, between the scheming and between the player development and then between the player actually learning from the moment, poor routes, having jello hands and so on, it can't happen. Dabo Swinney said that out of Cade's 9 interceptions he threw last year, only 4 of them were his fault. As much as everybody wants to pick on Cade, the wide receivers, they are on scholarship to catch the football. I'm not on scholarship because I'm not a D1 football player, but they are. They have to catch the football. Turnovers will kill you. That's the old saying from Lee Corso on the old EA Sports games, and it's true. Turnovers will kill you. Clemson has to get healthy. Clemson has to be well fundamentaled, and they have to stop turning over the football. All right, now let's look at the schedule. Now, this schedule, I'm just going to go through and I'm going to tell you who I believe downright they're either going to lose to, they're going to win, or a question. Now, remember, my prediction for the season is that best case scenario for the regular season, Clemson goes 11-1. Worst case scenario, 7-5. Realistically, I believe the Tigers will be 9-3. Now, I would like to go 10-2, but I'm sorry. I'm just not going to get burned this year. I'm just throwing that out there to you. I believe 9-3 is more realistic. Now, if Clemson comes out and they show some great improvement, okay, I'll eat crow on that one gladly with a side of homemade honey mustard. But I'm not going to go beyond 9-3. So I'm going to actually share the Clemson schedule with you right now. And we're just gonna chat about this for a moment. First off, we play against Georgia. This is not a This is not a, oh, I didn't know they were the number one team in the country. Oh, I didn't know that last year they were only 3 points away from contending for a third consecutive national championship. We know this. We're tired of hearing it. If you're a Clemson fan, you're tired of hearing it. But the truth is, no matter your feelings on Georgia, no matter your disdain for their fan base, Kirby, how fast their players drive, they are the front runner for the national championship. And Clemson, if they beat them, it would be considered an upset. And I qualified this the other day, and I'm going to qualify it again. There's a difference between the number 4 team in the country beating the number 1 team and the number 14 team beating the number 1 team in the country. That's different upsets. An unranked team beating the number 1 team in the country. That's a different level of upset of even the number 14 team beating the number 1 team. So, Georgia comes into this game. They have lost some of those dominant wide receivers like Ladd McConkey, the tight end, unbelievable tight end Brock Bowers, which I think was possibly the best college football player last year. I really do. The guy was just unbelievable. He never disappointed. They do have Carson Beck back. Carson Beck back. Say that 5 times in a row. They have one of the deepest running back rooms in the country. So even if Trevor Etienne serves a suspension for everything that went on with him, they still have an incredible running back room. The offensive line is talented. And yes, they might have lost those that wide receiver and the tight end, but folks, they're Georgia. They have been raiding the portal. They've been recruiting well. We don't need to sit here, and I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to get to my prediction for this game. We don't need to sit here and go, yeah, they fell apart. No, they haven't. We don't need to overestimate them like they're unbeatable. But if some of us are just waiting on Georgia to come in there and be a bunch of lackeys, don't hold your breath or else you'll die. You will absolutely pass out cold, turn blue. They're going to come into this game. They're going to play tough. Georgia right now, as of a week before the game, Georgia is a 13.5-point favorite in this ball game. Now, folks, I'm not going to give you an exact score on this. In fact, on my Georgia Clemson preview, which I'll do next week, I'm not sure what I'll do then. But I will tell you this: I believe Georgia wins this ball game. I don't like it. I hate it. I'm not saying that Clemson does not stand a chance of possibly winning the game. I'm just saying I think that if this game were later on in the season and Clemson had proven themselves, they had 3 or 4 cupcake games or maybe, just mid-range games to play, and we could see some really good improvement, see that the offensive line's better, see that Cade and the wide receivers were gelling, I would feel better about things. Maybe you could see Clemson upsetting Georgia a little more than right now. But, folks, I'm just telling you, I just don't see it right now. I think the most important part here is that Clemson plays Georgia well, and they look like they belong in the top 10. They look like they belong in the top 5. Go in there and play Georgia really, really well to where Georgia walks away going, what just happened? They were supposed to be a bunch of losers. I hate losing. I'm with Vince Lombardi. You show me a good loser, I show you a loser. I believe that 100%. But where Clemson's at in this part of Clemson football history, I just believe they need to go in and just play Georgia well. If they get the win, thank you. That's awesome. That's great. I'll shout to the rooftops and eat crow on that one too. I just believe that Georgia beats Clemson next week. Let's go to the next game. The next game is Appalachian State. Appalachian State, we know about 07, what they did going up to the Big House and winning. That's a totally different team. That team is 50 years old now. Not really, but you know what I mean. A couple of years ago, our old buddy Chase Bryce was playing quarterback for Appalachian State. Went down to Texas A&M, beat Jimbo Fisher, Mr. $75 million to go away. They beat them. Here's what you have to do here. I went to App State last year, saw a beautiful game up there. It's a beautiful place. If you've never been, you need to go there. Appalachian State is a good football team. And my concern for Clemson in this ball game is that they will be, according to how that Georgia game goes. Now, if Georgia comes out and dominates them and beats the crap out of Clemson for some reason, Clemson's out there up to their old ways and on the offensive side of the football, and they're turning over the football left and right, and Cade's staring down people, and they couldn't block a fly from along the front five. Okay, that could be disastrous. If that happens, don't be shocked if Appalachian State puts up a really good fight against Clemson. I don't care if it is the home opener. My biggest concern is that Clemson's not looking back at Georgia or looking forward to NC State the very next week. This is a prime time game to get upset. But I believe the Tigers wins this game, barring injury to Cade Klubnik. And I'm going to pause there. I gave you a 7-5 prediction. The 7-5 prediction. If Cade Klubnik gets hurt, none of our backup quarterbacks has shown us anything in any meaningful game time. And I've been pulling for Trent Pierman. I hope Vizina's doing better. I hope he's developing. But folks, I'm just telling you the truth here. I'm just being honest. I'm just using reality here. None of them has shown us anything that says that they could step into an offense right now that's still trying to figure out things, with an offensive line that's still trying to figure out things, and lead. I don't know that they can do that. So if Cade Klubnik gets injured, as much flack as he's caught, there's your 7-5. And you can pick a host of games to be part of that 5 losses. But at this point, I have Clemson going 1-1. The very next week, they play against NC State. You know anything about NC State? They raided the portal on the offensive side of the football. They are flipping loaded. Got Grayson McCall out of Coastal Carolina. Yeah, the guy has some health issues here and there, but he is a baller. They have KC Concepcion, one of the best freshmen in all of college football last year. He's back. The running back from Duke that gave us fits last year. Well, now he's part of the NC State Wolfpack. They have an unbelievable offensive line. They got a transfer in from Notre Dame. We know that Notre Dame has really good offensive linemen. He's coming to play for them. The question is on defense. On defense. So think about them. Their strength is their offense. Our strength is our defense. It's in the Valley. NC State hasn't won there since 2002. I know streaks can be made to be broken, but I believe that Clemson wins this ball game. I think it's going to be a heck of a game. It will probably be a night game. It'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a blast. Just the only thing here is Clemson has to play very well in this ball game, because NC State has the offensive prowess to beat the Tigers for the first time since 2002. But I believe Clemson wins this ball game. Next up, you have Stanford. New ACC members. Stanford is terrible. They have that one good wide receiver that absolutely tore up Colorado last year. He had, over 200 yards receiving, had some unbelievable catches on Travis Hunter, that is. But this is not the Christian McCaffrey Stanford team. This is not the Andrew Luck Stanford team. This is a very bad team. And I believe Clemson easily wins this game. Go and you play at Florida State. You play Florida State. DJ, we know the whole thing with him. We know about Mike Norvell. The guy can coach whether you like him or not. They've raided the portal. They have, they recruit solid, not as well as you would think they would, but they recruit solid. This is going to be a game that I am concerned about our offense. Again, our offense. I believe that Clemson is going to struggle in this ball game offensively if they have not figured it out up to this point. And I think for some reason, prove me wrong, this is a game that Clemson loses. Not because DJ was so good, but that DJ only did what he had to do, and everybody else around him did what they had to do. And that includes the Florida State defense. The Florida State defense putting the game on Cade's shoulders, especially if he and or the offensive line has not improved. This will be loss number 2. Clemson plays Wake Forest in Winston-Salem. This is not the whole Hartman team that you saw. Definitely, I see Clemson winning this ball game. Really don't have to go into much there. The very next week, you have Virginia coming to town. Tony Elliott's coming back. And, Virginia, Virginia is just not a good program. It's just not good. This is not the George Welsh days from the 90s when you had the Barber twins and you had to worry about a real foe coming into play. Virginia's just not good, and I see Clemson winning this ball game. We have Coach Brom and his team, the wonder of last year, coming in to Clemson. I believe that they're going to play Clemson well yet again. I believe this is going to be the power of Clemson's defense going up against their offense. I believe that Clemson's running game will actually do quite well in a lot of these games, believe it or not. I believe that our running game will be our savior because you have Phil Maffa barring injury. And I believe Clemson pulls this game out. Louisville does return from, if my memory serves me correct, a lot of starters. They do have that new quarterback from Texas Tech. But with that said, I just think that Clemson pulls this game out. It could be an upset a little later on if we're thinking about that 7-5 situation. The 7-5 situation, once again, I go back to if Cade gets hurt. That is where we would see a 7-5 scenario. Next up, Clemson at Virginia Tech. Now, when you think about Virginia Tech, you think about Frank Beamer, you think about Michael Vick, but that was 25 years ago. That's 25 years ago that Michael Vick was there. And sure, there were some good teams up through the 2000s and into, about 2010, somewhere in there roughly. And so Virginia Tech has this feel and mindset that they're just this amazing football team, or they were an amazing football team. Let me correct myself there. But the truth is they had some good seasons here and there, and then they had like one really good season. But overall, Virginia Tech has not seen the success that Clemson's seen. Unfortunately, this game is in Blacksburg. And you are now just far enough outside of those first 5 games. Remember, I said our schedule is top heavy. The very first game is the toughest team we'll play all regular season. The next toughest game is our 5th game, which is Florida State. Our 3rd toughest game, I would say, is NC State. But you get out of that. And let's say you only have 2 losses. So the team is not thrilled about where they're at. But at the same time, they're okay. Maybe the fan base is hoping we'll win out and so on. I believe this Virginia Tech game could definitely be the game that Clemson gets loss number 3. I really believe that this Virginia Tech game is the game to watch for loss number 3. And in fact, I'm calling, unless, and I could change this later on, especially if Virginia Tech falls apart or if Clemson does a great job and corrects a lot along the offensive line, all the stuff I've mentioned before. I just see Clemson losing this ball game. Not because of the defense. Again, questions about the offense, maybe turning over the ball. That would be loss number 3. Clemson playing Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is just, they were good once or solid. They're not amazing. I see Clemson beating Pittsburgh. I wonder what's going on up there, and I wonder how long they're going to put up with it. I really don't know, and I really don't care. I'm not a Pittsburgh fan whatsoever. So next up, you have Citadel. Clemson will take care of Citadel at home. And then the next week, you have South Carolina coming in. The last time South Carolina came to Clemson, they beat them by 1 point. We were running the football really well, and then we stopped. Their fans were asking, why'd y'all stop running the football on us? We couldn't stop it. I really don't think that Garrett Riley is in a place to where he wants to torpedo his chance of becoming a head coach at a major college football institute. But if he wanted to torpedo it, he would stop doing what's working. And so South Carolina, I'm going to tell you, I think South Carolina is going to play us tough this year. They have a really solid quarterback. This guy, you can make fun of him if you want to, but Sellers is something else. He's a very talented quarterback. He's a player's player. The guy can play ball. The thing is, they lost Juice Wells, who really didn't play last year, and of course Xavier Legette, I think, was an unbelievable talent. He's gone, but I think they're going to play Clemson tough, and I think that Clemson's going to have to take them serious whether they want to or not, no matter what South Carolina's record is. But I do believe that Clemson beats the Gamecocks in Death Valley. They defend the home turf, and there is your 9-3 3. Just some passing thoughts before I go. Again, I hope you'll subscribe. I see a bunch of you in here, a lot of comments. I had to turn the comments off just so I could get through this. I can see the comments that they're there. I just can't see them. A couple of thoughts here. Garrett Riley has been making several moves over the past 12 years. You're like, several moves. What do you mean, Brian? You're like being very unspecific, whatever. Here's what I'm trying to say here. Garrett Riley has climbed his way to almost the top in about a 12 to 13 year period. And he's not going to let Clemson and whatever's going on with the offense hold him back. And I just have a prediction that if this year is another blah offensive year, don't be shocked if he looks for another gig. The Riley brothers are well connected throughout college football, and you will see him look for somewhere that will give him a chance, offensive coordinator, that will possibly get him to that head coach role. That's my personal thought. But anyway, leave your comments below. Let me know. What do you think? 9-3? 9-3? Do you see 9-3? Do you see 8-4? I'm seeing more 9-3. And 7-5, once again, that's if Cade Klubnik gets injured. 11-1. 11-1 would have to be Clemson had made some major offensive changes. I'm talking about the offensive line's playing fantastic. Cade Klubnik's playing fantastic. The wide receivers are burning it up. The schemes are unbelievable. We're not calling lazy, quick wide receiver screens. We can actually stretch the field. That is what I'm seeing there for Clemson to go 11-1. We're talking about vast improvement. I'm looking at 9-3, and I think especially where Clemson's at right now, 9-3 would actually be good. You go and you win your bowl game. There's 10 wins. Maybe you get into the ACC championship, but the reason I'm backing off of that, you need to go look at other teams and their schedules, namely NC State. NC State only plays one tough ACC school, and it's Clemson. They don't play Florida State. I don't believe they play Miami. They, even by their own fans' admission, should be 10-2, and even if they lost to Clemson, which I'm predicting they will on September 21st, they could still actually make it to the ACC championship because, remember, there's no more divisions. So the top 2 teams, that's in. That's who's in. So let me know what you think. Leave your comments below. I hope you will subscribe. Hope you'll pass this along. Remember, it is free to subscribe, and I look forward to reading your comments. I hope you'll pass this along. Folks, you take care of yourself.